I'm Layert, and I've seen that more and more men are giving up on a relationship because they're afraid of being humiliated and judged by others online. Maybe you may relate to this situation of fatigue and uneasiness, feeling that relationships are getting more difficult. Stay with me through to the finish because what I'm about to show you may dramatically alter your perspective on how to find genuine friendships while preserving your energy and dignity. I see how our relationships are impacted by this atmosphere of mistrust. I understand that approaching a woman was considered normal, even expected, not too long ago. Anxiety was essentially the same as facing a potential rejection, although dignity was typically maintained. Men of days are afraid of becoming popular in videos that ridicule their methods or of being added to the list of social media forgettables. How many of us males have ever felt intimidated by the idea that a simple, "Hello, how are you?" It could be viewed as a frightening attitude or turned into a comedy among friends. I understand that the fact that we live in a time when everything is captured on camera, disseminated and subject to thousands of virtual reactions is directly related to this shift. Even the smallest mistake can have consequences that were previously unimaginable. As a result, many of us favor the path of silence, which many women perceive as romanticism or a lack of bravery. I am aware, though, that this is about self-defense rather than cowardice. In my opinion, seminal retention is crucial in this situation because a man who chooses to control his sexual energy develops an inner peace that causes him to reconsider putting himself in emotionally dangerous situations. The need to get closer at all costs in order to satiate a transient urgency has vanished. I find that when we practice keeping semen, we become less impulsive and start acting more circumspectly when we approach. In order to preserve inner tranquility, many of us withdraw if the environment appears unfriendly, choosing instead to concentrate on our education, personal goals, life projects, and even spirituality. I can see how this annoys some women who are unaware of the retreat's purpose. They question why there aren't more males showing up and why the seduction game isn't being played anymore. However, they appear to be ignoring the crucial element. The rejection might go beyond a simple no and become public humiliation on the internet, and the technique could be construed as harassment. Exaggerations are inevitable in any setting, but in today's culture, many men are uncertain about the consequences of just expressing, "You seem interesting to me, I'd like to talk." It's odd to observe how the rejection of any act deemed oppressive or invasive is entwined with the idea that man has to chase. He can be labeled a nuisance or even a predator if he persistently follows you. He is accused of being weak, cowardly, or lacking in flirtation skills if he remains motionless. This conundrum wears you out. In a number of instances, friends confided in me that they were hesitant to take charge. They worry about social media embarrassment, communication logs being made public, or jokes like, "Look what this ridiculous guy told me." I've personally questioned how many times I gave up on a relationship because I was so afraid it would be perceived negatively. I understand that many guys in the past acted in an insensitive manner, but you can't hold everyone to the same standards. I constantly question whether a true, courteous approach is still appropriate, but I feel like it's normal for many men to back off when they read about guys on Instagram or TikTok who had their earnest attempt transformed into a joke. Additionally, I see that this retreat gets easier for people who practice seminal retention. The desire remains, but it is less pressing, and the individual is better able to organize their own activities, keeping the emphasis on inner peace rather than approval seeking. Many friends say they felt more confident after adopting seminal retention, but they also realized they didn't want to risk this balanced state by using high-risk methods. Choosing to be alone becomes more alluring than engaging in potentially embarrassing social activities. If there was once a stronger desire to try your luck, there is now a mindset that asks, "Is it worth getting into this game?" Though I wonder if they comprehend the reasons why we isolate ourselves. I've seen conversations about how this irritates women who miss that procession. It has been reported to me that women are upset with men because they don't put in more effort, send unexpected messages, or set up impromptu dates. At the same time, I see screenshots of conversations that have been brutally exposed or innumerable videos of mockery. The man's uneasiness is exacerbated by the "look what this guy did" mentality, as he questions whether it's truly worth being, featured in this kind of virtual headline. This seems contradictory to me. While the lack of initiative is criticized, no accountability is taken for the hostile environment that was produced. Men understand this and choose to keep to themselves, cultivate seminal energy, deepen personal development, and protect themselves from potential emotional distress and public embarrassment. Let's face it, women are not solely responsible for creating this judgmental environment. There is a clear female component to the practice, as many promote or support the practice of shaming approaches that are considered inappropriate. That want to pursue it gives way to a better no, particularly if we are going through a phase where we are concentrating on our spiritual, fitness, or professional objectives. According to my observations, guys who decide to keep semen for a while report feeling more emotionally balanced and having more mental clarity. In this manner, people avoid wasting time and effort on things that can give them headaches and instead make well-considered decisions. The man believes that my time and my balance are worth more than an uncertain attempt rather than I need to get to it at all costs. The effort to get closer and the risk of being judged online are not worth it if everything can go wrong in a matter of minutes. This mindset seems to be spreading everywhere. Groups of guys seem to be spreading the notion that there is nothing wrong with being single because there is a lot to discover in life outside of tumultuous romantic relationships. Since the individual is already accustomed to handling desires without giving in to them, this way of thinking is reflected in the seminal retention technique. The person who maintains semen understands that he does not depend on sexual exploits to feel good or confirm his masculinity. He finds in containment a command over himself that frees him from the impulse to prove something by superficial approaches or involvements. I have contact with men who say something like, "Before I felt the need to go out, meet people, try my luck, and now I'm fine. I don't need that validation. I don't chase after trouble. If something really positive comes along, great. Otherwise, I'm well alone." I understand this as a personal evolution. Not everyone agrees, as some consider this as a sign of weakness or shyness. I, however, take it as caring for one's own vitality. If the atmosphere is not receptive, if the results could be devastating, why expose yourself? I've observed that many women don't grasp this reasoning and would rather claim that males have no attitude or have become cowards. However, I firmly believe that this is common sense rather than cowardice. A choice to put your inner stability first and avoid any embarrassment. Demanding that men take on the role of conqueror again is, in my opinion, insufficient if you truly want things to revert to how they were. You must establish a setting where it is safe to attempt. When a man feels appreciated and accepted despite being rejected, he might be inspired to approach more frequently. You learn how to redirect impulses through seminal retention. We can objectively evaluate whether an interaction has the potential to be beneficial or only give us a headache if we are no longer so captive to want. The fact that we may make decisions based on reasoned standards without the pressure of unbridled libido exacerbates the fear of being mocked. There seems to be a contradiction between the men's response that no one wants to be labeled an inconvenience and the women's statement that there are no more gentlemen. We live in a culture where everything is done to create content, which makes the problem worse. False moves by men have the potential to go viral. His name and face could be associated with some story that portrays him as the creepy guy who tried to flirt at the gym. This could lead to a widespread withdrawal. Women are overlooked, yet they are unaware of their role in creating this insecure situation. Selective seclusion, bolstered by seminal retention, provides tangible advantages including mental tranquility, reduced anxiety, and increased attention on one's own objectives. Men are still interested in relationships, but they've begun to see that it's pointless to live tensely, concerned with pleasing someone who could mock them at any time or share their message in WhatsApp groups. Putting money into your job spirituality, and personal well-being is more engaging. It goes without saying that some people disagree with this position, claiming that romance is becoming less beautiful. However, this is a meticulous filtration rather than a permanent closure to love. Man progresses selectively, as long as no minimally reliable environment is discovered. If a lady exhibits maturity, reciprocity, and respect, you will be able to invest in her. Without this control, many of us would give in to our instincts and jeopardize every chance, which is why I consider seminal retention as an internal stronghold. When determining where it is worthwhile to wager, this control ensures peace of mind. All of this, in my opinion, represents a significant shift in contemporary relationships. Previously, guys were under so much pressure to hunt that they would stop at nothing to attract a woman's attention. Now that he may be publicly identified and mocked, he has learned again that loneliness is not an issue. At the same time, he came to understand that seminal retention provides a calm and disciplined path that may support him even in the absence of a stable companion. Since there are alternative ways to achieve sublimation and personal fulfillment, the danger of being perceived as desperate vanishes. There is a personal value involved. This man is not ready to jeopardize his dignity for a shot at something unsure, especially when that uncertain thing could become a virtual laughingstock. I see many women mistake this posture for a lack of confidence or desire, but they fail to realize that. More important to him than any fleeting adventure is his own dignity. Even if it could seem problematic to individuals who love the old model, I believe that this is a natural evolution in the environment we live in. Whether this will lead to a gender disparity is another question I hear. Women who are complaining, in my opinion, need to assess the factors that lead to this atmosphere of mistrust and shame if they are serious about changing the situation. They must demonstrate by their behavior that they value polite approaches and that they will not disparage or expose someone who has made an effort at sincere communication. Men, on the other hand, must eventually face their fears and look for opportunities for mature conversation. Everything tends to stall in the same loop of accusations and anger in the absence of this dual movement. Without it, the man would be more inclined to pursue it even in a hostile setting. Therefore, I reiterate that the practice of keeping semen acts as a foundation of strength and autonomy in this situation. We start to see things more broadly and impartially when we have control over our libido. Often, we decide not to invest and keep fortifying our inner selves if the risk is considerable and the likelihood of humiliation is significant. Personal maturity includes deciding not to compete for women's attention in a minefield. After grasping this idea of self-respect coupled with seminal retention, friends tell me they feel more liberated. They claim that while they still like and crave company, they would rather invest in the right person than engage in an unfair conflict. The initiative can arise organically if the woman seems open to real conversation, receptive, and unaffected by the internet. But if the situation is suspicious, the man just doesn't take the chance. Retention allows for this freedom of choice, which gives emotional life a new rhythm free from the stress of needing someone at all costs. I can see how this movement runs against to some ideologies that advocate for man to be the hunter at all times. In actuality, a lot of men are now aware that hunting might be risky, particularly in areas with a lot of social traps. The mindset of, "I'm fine alone," takes over. I see confidence in place of fear. I see self-awareness in place of neediness. It's crucial to overcome the fear of loneliness in order to stay out of complex relationships that could damage one's reputation or sense of self. I'm surrounded by examples of men who choose to defend themselves following a series of setbacks and humiliations. I'm not advocating for the development of animosity or hatred toward women, but rather for realizing that it is not worth exposing oneself if there are no minimal assurances of respect. At this stage, seminal retention strengthens the armor by lowering the urgency of sexual contact while preserving equilibrium and self-focus. In this manner, there is less incentive to take chances. It's a period of transition and development that, in my view, may benefit a lot of individuals. From a feminine point of view, this must be disappointing. After all, this movement is constantly missed by people who enjoyed being courted. However, I think it's time to observe how animosity and internet ridicule have transformed the flirting dynamic into something risky for everyone who dares to do so. The innumerable accounts of males who were ridiculed on TikTok for being inappropriate in their behavior cannot be disregarded. I ask ladies to consider the extent to which this prevents males from attempting again. In my opinion, if values are reviewed, we may all gain in the end. Women could receive sincere advances without making any mistakes into public jokes, while men might once again be more daring in their approach without worrying about becoming memes. If this occurs, the male who engages in seminal retention might feel more comfortable directing his energies toward genuine relationships rather than staying a loner. Many of us have made the decision to uphold our dignity at the expense of not taking chances until this climate changes. Let me present you to my new book, Alchemy of the Gods, in which I discuss transforming topics like true spiritual freedom, kundalini, and crystalline oil. My name is Laerti. This is the ultimate manual that can fundamentally alter your understanding of energy, purpose, and spiritual connection if you want to raise your awareness and learn more about the advantages of seminal retention. By just clicking on the URL I provided in the pinned remark and the description, you can access the physical, digital, or audiobook versions. First, though, I have some unexpected news for you. The Semen Retention Success Path is the ultimate manual you've been looking for if you're prepared to change your life and increase your energy to completely new heights. I compiled my research on the 6 most important key retention themes into an audiobook that is over 2 hours long and packed with insightful knowledge for your growth. Get yourself for a voyage of personal development and self-discovery that goes much beyond the norm. Imagine regaining your vitality, developing deeply and permanently, and unlocking a vast amount of essential energy. This audiobook is a master key that unlocks doors to a new degree of achievement and fulfillment, not merely a source of knowledge. Additionally, you will receive a 30% discount on my unique ebook, The Art of Semen Retention for Men, when you buy the Semen Retention Success Path. It contains over 20 pages of effective methods for your spiritual growth, personal development, emotional equilibrium, self-awareness, self-improvement, connection to the divine, and finding your life's purpose. All of this is intended to assist you in realizing the amazing potential that every one of us possesses. The channel's new Members tab is another new feature. Here, you may become a major supporter and get special YouTube benefits like badges and emojis. This encourages me to keep creating fresh content, learn more about these intriguing subjects, and grow our community even more. Therefore, don't allow this chance slip away. Purchase the audiobook Semen Retention Success Path, the book Alchemy of the Gods, and as a bonus, The Art of Semen Retention for Men, at the irresistible discount. Join us and contribute to creating a genuinely one-of-a-kind learning and transformational environment. I respond that everyone has their own option when people ask if I support this position. Taking care of their health, training, researching, and developing their spirituality makes many men feel more fulfilled, and seminal retention makes all of this possible. There is more time for what truly propels our personal development when we are not squandering it on stressful attempts at success. Here, I see emotional intelligence rather than cowardice. I used to be critical of this, but now I see how profound the transformation has been. Although this chapter has no clear conclusion, I acknowledge that we are living in a period of change. Men have learned that sometimes being alone is preferable to being in a complex relationship. A male generation that is less inclined to plead for female approval is the result of the practice of semen preservation, which elevates our concept of self-care. A woman must assess her attitudes and her acceptance of male overtures if she regrets the absence of romanticism. The male won't take the chance if she doesn't be transparent. And maybe the initiative will come easily and bravely if man finds a safe place to stand. I feel like the game has changed when I'm talking to my pals. It seems like there used to be a very clear script for conversations, but now everything is unpredictable. It makes a lot of sense to be in charge of oneself during this chaos. Regulating your desires is just as important as regulating your own reactions, which is where seminal retention comes into play. We become more picky and careful when we are not in a dire need of sexual validation. Even if we may experience loneliness occasionally, the tranquility it provides greatly surpasses the conflicts of taking risks. The relief of not having to prove anything to anyone has already hit me. Being free to concentrate on my goals, ideas, and initiatives, rather than waste time on flirtation that can result in videos that make fun of me. It is an invaluable comfort. Indeed, the need for companionship and to share experiences still exists, but it is less important if the other person is in a hostile setting. I now view being alone as a beneficial time for introspection and development, whereas previously I believed it to be a sign of failure. Since we don't now see a better way, many of us males take this position. Who knows? Maybe a rebalancing will occur in the future, and people will value real interactions once more. However, we hold on to our energy in the interim to avoid wasting it on potentially harmful things. Given that more and more men are opting for quiet, alone lives rather than stressful, critical partnerships, I have a feeling that this discussion will change significantly. According to some, this signifies the breakdown of love relationships. I like to think of it as a time for group introspection, the fact that males are actually no longer terrified of being alone, and that many are taking use of this time to further their personal growth, motivated by the inner power that seminal retention provides, may be the only thing that makes people recognize what they've been missing. We are no longer bound by the previous regulations because to this freedom of choice. Anyone hoping to catch this kind of man's attention will need to reconsider their behavior and responses to approaches to intimacy. Saying that we will no longer tolerate any conditions is more important than penalizing women for previous transgressions. Peace and honor are very valuable. It's worth a lot to feel good about yourself without needing approval from others. And a guiding principle in this process is seminal retention, which makes sure that misguided desire doesn't hold us captive. Even while this movement creates strangeness, I would rather regard it as a communal maturing, since it challenges the centuries-old belief that man must always initiate everything. Maybe a healthier atmosphere where male methods are accepted and valued without worrying about becoming a meme will develop as this story progresses. Given that its primary goal is to foster integrity, clarity, and focus, seminal retention would still be pertinent in this scenario. However, women must realize how much this new situation of public jokes and snap judgments has alienated many who were already weary of bearing the weight of being forced to arrive if men are to resume their previous behavior. I believe that roles need to be redefined in contemporary times. I would rather see this as a chance to reevaluate our principles, despite the fact that many people perceive it negatively. Prioritizing empathy, communication, and respect is essential if we desire truly meaningful relationships. Anyone who wants to establish genuine contact cannot be made fun of. The assumption that we need maturity to know where to focus our energies is reinforced by seminal retention. It's about managing desire sensibly and sparingly, not suppressing it. When I think about these things, I see how all of this has to do with the personal development of men. When a man learns to manage himself, he understands that he doesn't have to risk his dignity or plead for attention. He might be able to use his inner power to pursue more fulfilling objectives in life. Raising the standards for decision-making, instead of letting social pressure force you into awkward circumstances, does not imply sacrificing the romantic element. I hear women lamenting the allure of bygone eras. Men often reply that they want to be charming, but that if something goes wrong, they don't want to be made fun of. Maybe this dispute won't be settled until both sides make some concessions. Men may retrain how to trust the approach process without worrying about being exposed as idiots, and women can reassess how they approach approaches. Because man no longer acts on impulse but rather with true controlled will, Seminal retention is the basis of peace. The more I learn about this subject, the more I understand that there is a collection of aspects that fit together, rather than a single, unchanging right or wrong. Relationships have been altered by internet culture, and seminal retention provides a means for males to adjust to this shift without feeling trapped. As long as there is mutual respect and assurance that no one will be crucified if they fail in their attempt, I still think that romance, flirting, and kind gestures are acceptable. Until this occurs, I think a lot of guys will keep choosing to stay in the quiet of their own path, fortifying their body, mind, and soul, until they feel comfortable enough to venture out and find a partner who genuinely understands the need of reciprocity and respect. Seeing this occurrence leads me to think that relationships will be more mindful in the future, since anyone who continues to look for genuine connections will need to try to foster an environment of trust. Those who insist on embarrassing, exposing, and mocking methods could end up feeling alone and whining about the lack of advances from men. Although it's a complicated situation, I believe that the discipline of holding on to semen offers us the mental fortitude and patience to either wait or create more accepting relationships. Yes, that's a significant adjustment, but I think it will be beneficial. Men who no longer fear being alone become more picky, and these high standards can result in better relationships. After all, we are not required to accept anything if we are not in a desperate situation. When we choose someone, it's based on genuine affinity rather than irrational desires. Our determination is fueled by retention, and many of us will avoid approaches as long as there are unfavorable circumstances. This is a tactic to maintain vitality, sanity, and self-worth rather than a defeat. I'm still convinced that spreading knowledge about this phenomenon can spark discussions and lead to new discoveries. The more we discuss the reasons for men's separations, the more we open the door to potential reunions. Perhaps the relationship will be rekindled in a sincere manner if the other person comprehends, grows, and shows maturity. Until then, I support people who would rather preserve their strength, hold on to their semen, and live by principles that put their personal peace first. This is the wisdom of someone who values themselves and doesn't fear loneliness, not cowardice, in my opinion. We can live lighter in this way, and we will be prepared to act if a genuine chance presents itself without sacrificing our morals or our dignity. Perhaps you are torn between wanting to get closer and worrying about being mocked or misinterpreted. You become depressed, worn out, and unsure of how to get out of this situation. If this information made sense to you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it, like it, and subscribe to the channel. And keep checking back because we'll be posting another insightful video soon.